They had just exchanged vows, promising to love each other until death. But just 8 days after their wedding, 24-year-old Cody Johnson was dead, and his new bride, Jordan Graham, knew exactly where to find his body. Kalispell, Montana, peaceful, picturesque, and surrounded by the majestic views of Glacier National Park. It's the kind of place where crime feels like a distant possibility. But in July 2013, it became the focus of a nationwide mystery. Cody Johnson was known for his outgoing personality, his love of cars and shooting sports, and his deep care for those around him. He met Jordan Graham at a local church lunch, and from the very beginning, he was smitten. Jordan was quieter, more reserved, and devoutly religious. They seemed like opposites, but something about their connection clicked, at least for Cody. He quickly saw her as his future. He spoke openly to friends and family about wanting to marry her, raise a family, and build a life together. But Jordan's feelings were harder to read. Friends who knew them closely say the relationship always felt one-sided. Cody would try to spend time with her, but she often avoided being alone with him. On dates, she'd sometimes bring other people along. No one could remember seeing them kiss or hold hands, even once. So, when Cody proposed a little over a year after they met, most people were surprised, especially when Jordan said yes. Some wondered if she was more in love with the idea of marriage than the man she was marrying. In the weeks leading up to the ceremony, Jordan focused heavily on planning, but seemed distant whenever the wedding itself came up. Her matron of honor later said Jordan asked more than once if she was making the right decision. She seemed unsure, irritated even, whenever the actual commitment was mentioned. Still, the wedding went ahead on June 29, 2013. Photos from that day show smiles, rings, and celebrations. But those who attended said something felt off. As Jordan walked down the aisle, she looked down at the ground and cried. Not tears of joy, but something else. At the altar, she didn't meet Cody's eyes. And during their first dance, they swayed to a song Jordan had personally recorded, a haunting ballad about climbing high and falling hard. No one could have known how ominous those lyrics would soon become. The very next day, Jordan began expressing doubts. She told friends she wasn't sure she'd made the right decision. In text messages, she hinted at regrets and discomfort, saying she was overwhelmed and anxious. She claimed their wedding night had been miserable. Some of her friends suspected they hadn't even consummated the marriage. 8 days later, Cody was gone. He failed to show up for work on Monday morning. His friends and family grew concerned immediately. This wasn't like him. They began calling, searching, checking his social media. But there was no sign of him. No calls, no posts, nothing. Oddly, Jordan didn't seem worried. That same day, she was seen smiling, laughing, and eating ice cream with friends, acting carefree while everyone else panicked. When asked where Cody might be, she said he left with friends in a black car with Washington plates. But when pressed for names or more information, she had none. She said she didn't know the men or where they were headed. The story didn't make sense. Cody hadn't mentioned meeting anyone. He hadn't packed anything. And Jordan's attitude didn't match that of a newlywed whose husband had vanished. As concern turned to fear, Jordan's friends and family gathered at her home to try to help. They searched through his social media, bank accounts, anything that might offer a clue. But Jordan became more and more agitated. At one point, she took off her wedding ring and threw it across the room. That night, one of her closest friends called her in frustration. "What is going on?" she asked. "Why can't you tell the same story twice?" Jordan didn't have an answer, and it was only going to get stranger from there. Because the next day, Jordan showed police an email she had just received. It was from a man calling himself Tony the Car Man. The email read, "Hello, Jordan. There is no need to look for Cody anymore. He's gone. He had a great fall and died. His body will never be recovered. I'm sorry, but it's over." Jordan told police she had no idea who Tony was. The email claimed Cody had died in a hiking accident at Glacier National Park. When her friends saw the message, they urged her to go to the police immediately, and she did. But rather than solve the case, the mysterious email only deepened the investigators' suspicions. Jordan had just led them to the first major clue in the investigation. What no one realized yet was that she was also about to lead them straight to the body. With Cody Johnson still missing, and Jordan Graham handing over a bizarre email from a man named Tony the Car Man, police had more questions than answers. The message claimed Cody had fallen to his death at Glacier National Park and that his body wouldn't be found. It was an odd detail, and it felt too specific. Detectives began checking the origins of the email. Through digital forensics, they traced it back to an IP address registered at Jordan's own stepfather's home. Jordan herself had written the email. The revelation shifted everything. What started as a missing persons investigation had now turned into a possible homicide, and the person who had once seemed like a grieving wife was suddenly the prime suspect. Still, Jordan was free. She hadn't been charged, and police needed more proof before making their move. Then, just 4 days after Cody's disappearance, Jordan organized her own search party. With friends and family, she made the drive up to Glacier National Park, the very location mentioned in the mysterious email. On the first day, Jordan didn't contribute much. While others searched trails and posted flyers, she stayed detached, casually waving out the window and even wearing Cody's sunglasses. According to several friends, she seemed oddly upbeat, laughing, smiling, dancing. But everything changed the next day. That morning, Jordan insisted they go to a specific location known as The Loop. It's a remote trail surrounded by sharp drops and steep cliffs. Her friends suggested checking other trails first, but Jordan was adamant. She told them she just knew this was where Cody would be. Once they arrived, Jordan led the group to a wooden safety barrier and climbed over it, something no one else felt comfortable doing. She walked down to a rocky landing that offered a narrow view into a deep ravine. Then she pointed down and said, "There he is. I see him." The others were stunned. From where they stood, they couldn't see anything, but Jordan described the exact location of Cody's body before anyone else laid eyes on it. That's when everyone knew. There was no way she could have just known that. Search and rescue teams were immediately called in. After a long, difficult descent into the canyon, investigators reached the bottom. There, partially submerged in the water, was the lifeless body of Cody Johnson. He had fallen over 300 feet to his death. Jordan claimed that she had been guided to the spot by the Holy Spirit. She also told police that Cody had once mentioned wanting to see that area before he died. But the more she spoke, the less sense it made. When questioned again by detectives, Jordan said she and Cody had argued the night he disappeared. She told one story to friends, that Cody had held her down during a fight and scratched her. But when asked directly by police, she denied there had been any argument. Her accounts kept changing. Meanwhile, physical evidence kept piling up. Investigators pulled surveillance footage from the entrance to Glacier National Park. On the night Cody vanished, a camera captured Cody's car entering the park, with 2 people inside. The footage was blurry, but the outline clearly showed a man and a woman. Cell phone tower records backed it up. Both Cody and Jordan's phones pinged from inside the park that night. Cody hadn't gone with unknown friends. He had gone with his wife. That's when the FBI got involved. Federal agents arrived at Jordan's home with a warrant. When they informed her she was under arrest for the murder of her husband, she didn't show shock. She didn't cry. According to agents on the scene, she didn't even blink. Inside the interrogation room, agents laid out the evidence: the fake email, the location of the body, the conflicting stories, the surveillance footage, and the cell tower records. The weight of it all was impossible to ignore. Finally, Jordan broke down. She told investigators that she and Cody had been fighting on the night he died. She said they'd walked together on the loop trail, just above the cliff's edge. Cody had turned away from her, facing the drop, and grabbed her arm during the argument. That's when, according to Jordan, she pushed him. She said it wasn't premeditated, it wasn't planned. She just reacted in the heat of the moment, but what followed said otherwise. Instead of calling 911 or asking for help, Jordan drove home. She told no one what had happened. Then she created a fake email account to send herself a false story about Cody's death, hoping to end the investigation before it even started. For detectives, the case was clear. Jordan Graham had pushed her husband off a cliff just 8 days after saying, "I do." Now she was facing the consequences. With her confession on record, Jordan Graham was officially charged with second-degree murder. Prosecutors believed she had intentionally lured Cody to Glacier National Park and pushed him to his death. What started as a love story had become one of the most chilling crimes Montana had ever seen. But Jordan's confession wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a legal battle that would grip the small town of Kalispell and beyond. Despite admitting she pushed Cody, Jordan originally pleaded not guilty. Her defense attorneys argued that the incident wasn't premeditated, that it had happened during a heated argument and was a tragic accident, not a calculated murder. They said she acted in the moment, overcome by emotion. The prosecution didn't buy it. They pointed to the elaborate cover-up, how Jordan had faked an email, lied to investigators, and led a search party only to find Cody's body in a place only the killer could have known. They also showed how calm and collected she remained, even days after his death. Her demeanor was cold, her stories inconsistent, and her actions incriminating. Cody's family was devastated. His mother, Cody Johnson, struggled to speak through tears as she recounted her son's kind, loving nature. "He was a wonderful person," she told reporters. "He didn't deserve this." Friends echoed the same heartbreak. Many of them had attended the wedding just days before Cody vanished. None could believe what had happened, or that Jordan had been capable of something so horrific. The trial was set, and as courtroom dates loomed, shocking details emerged. Investigators had found more than just the confession. They discovered Jordan had taken deliberate steps in the days after the murder to erase suspicion. Surveillance footage showed her purchasing a black cloth, possibly the blindfold found near Cody's body. The prosecution suggested that she may have used it as a part of a twisted setup, luring Cody into a vulnerable position under the guise of a surprise. Phone records placed Jordan and Cody at the exact scene around the estimated time of death. Her digital trail, texts, deleted messages, fabricated emails, painted a picture of someone covering her tracks, not grieving her husband. Even more disturbing were Jordan's own words during the interrogation. She claimed she was afraid during the argument that Cody had grabbed her arm, but the medical examiner found no signs of a struggle on her body. Meanwhile, Cody had fallen headfirst off a cliff, something that suggested force and direction, not a stumble. And then there was Jordan's behavior at Cody's funeral. While others cried and mourned, Jordan sat in the front row texting on her phone. According to witnesses, she showed no emotion, no tears, no signs of remorse. Several people close to her, including her former best friend and matron of honor, began to believe she had planned everything. The most damning detail? A week after the murder, Jordan told a friend, "Now that the body's been found, we can have a funeral and the cops can stop bothering me." Eventually, Jordan changed her plea. Just days before the jury was set to deliberate, she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in a dramatic courtroom shift. She admitted that she pushed Cody off the cliff. She did not admit to planning it, but she acknowledged responsibility. The plea deal spared her a trial, but not judgment. The judge sentenced Jordan Graham to 30 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. She would serve her sentence in a facility hundreds of miles from home. Cody's family finally had justice, though it came at a cost. Cody Johnson, who had lost her only son, called the sentence bittersweet. She still didn't understand why Jordan said yes to the proposal, why she married Cody, or why she chose such a cruel ending just 8 days into their life together. As the courtroom emptied and the headlines faded, the quiet streets of Kalispell were left haunted by the story of a young man who believed he'd found love, and a woman who led him to his death. Jordan Graham's sentencing brought legal closure, but emotionally, the wounds remained wide open. In the days following her conviction, reactions from the public and Cody's loved ones were filled with disbelief, sorrow, and anger. To many, this case wasn't just about a murder. It was about betrayal, deception, and a life taken far too soon. Cody Johnson, Cody's mother, struggled to accept what had happened. Her son, her only child, had walked into marriage with excitement and hope. Just over a week later, he was dead, pushed off a cliff by the woman he had trusted with his heart. "There are still so many unanswered questions," Cody said in an interview. "I just don't understand why. If she didn't love him, why did she marry him? Why didn't she just walk away?" That why echoed not just among Cody's family, but in the minds of millions who followed the case. The wedding had been planned, photographed, and celebrated. 8 days later, the bride became a killer. What went so wrong so quickly? Some pointed to the immense pressure Jordan felt. Her religious beliefs forbade sex before marriage, and there were signs she felt overwhelmed by the expectations that came with being a wife. Texts revealed she was anxious, withdrawn, and unsure of herself. But to investigators and prosecutors, it was deeper than doubt. It was about control. When Jordan felt trapped in a relationship she couldn't escape without shame or consequence, she found an irreversible way out. The manner in which she led police to Cody's body, the way she faked an email to steer the investigation, these weren't acts of panic. They were calculated. The prosecution believed it was cold and premeditated, yet Jordan's defense insisted otherwise. They said she snapped in a moment of emotional overload, pushed him during an argument, and only then realized what she had done. The plea agreement for second-degree murder reflected that claim. It spared her from a trial for first-degree murder, which could have resulted in a life sentence without parole. Instead, Jordan received 30 years in federal prison, with no possibility of early release. She is serving her sentence at a high-security federal prison, where she will remain until at least her 50s. By the time she walks free, if ever, the world outside will have changed completely. For Cody Johnson, there is no second chance. He was remembered as someone who loved to laugh, loved his friends, and was excited to build a future. His funeral was filled with people who spoke of his kindness, his humor, and his dreams of becoming a father. To this day, his case is cited as one of the most shocking examples of marital homicide in recent American history. One moment, Cody was dancing at his wedding. The next, he was gone, pushed to his death by the very person he had just promised to spend his life with. The haunting truth remains. Sometimes, the most dangerous person in your life is the one closest to you.